Sportsbooks make billions on parlays every year. People love them, but most have no idea how they really work. Watch this video where I break it all down for you. Welcome to The Advantage. I'm A-Train Bets, and I use my brain to make bets. In this video, we're going to break down the components of a parlay, because parlays are the most enjoyed way of sports betting out there, and the sports books make most of their profits from people playing the parlays. And so we want to educate you and help you understand how parlays actually work, what they do and don't do for your betting, and how you can start to get an advantage from using them the right way. In this example, I'm going to show you a situation where we have three pretty typical bets. These bets would be something that a lot of folks might play on a given Sunday, a three-team parlay. You have the Bears -2, the Green Bay Packers and Cardinals over 48, and the Browns and the Eagles with the Eagles -8.5. So we've brought these three plays in, and each one of them are getting in the 4 to 5% range in terms of their negative expected value. Sportsbooks make their money by offering lines that are not quite at the true odds. We do a whole bunch of videos that explain what no-vig odds are and fair odds and all of that. This is not about that. This is just about understanding how parlays work, how a positive expected value parlay can amplify your potential return versus how a typical parlay amplifies your negative expected return. Well, in this case, all three of these plays are negative expected value, so we recommend you don't play them at all. But this is the kind of thing that a person without something like A-Train Station would find themselves doing a lot of the time. When you parlay them together, these three negative EV plays, you end up compounding the return, the expected return at the sports book. So in this case, that -13.17, that's what the book is going to make on every dollar you put towards it, based on how we've evaluated the markets and the true odds of these bets occurring. So when you play each one of these individually, you're expecting to lose 4 to 5% on that. When you parlay them, instead of overcoming the book's hold at 4%, you're now going to have to win enough to overcome it at 13%. You're only going to win 13% of the time. When they pay you at plus 589, and they should be paying you at 694 according to true odds, you are giving up a lot of return by bringing those together. When we move to a positive expected return parlay, you're going to see how the compounding of the bets that are positive expected value lead us to good results because we should be playing them. You might say, well, Train, you've just made up all these numbers. What are any of these? Well, we'll see some of these zeros turn to other numbers in a little bit, but simply saying what you have in a parlay, if you don't understand what a parlay really is, a parlay is when you take this bet and you take the proceeds from that and you invest it in the next bet, and then you take the proceeds from that and you put it all on the third bet. It doesn't matter the sequence. It doesn't matter the timing. But the way the math is calculated, it will lead you to understanding that in this scenario, these three bets, no matter what dollar amount you put on it, it will give you a 589 odds. And you might be like, Train, that's insanity. It doesn't matter. Well, let's show you. Stake of 0 is the recommended. We're going to do a stake of $10. So at $10, I'm going to put this in, and what I have is worst case scenario. I have a $10 expected loss. 13% of the time, I'm going to win $58.90. If I do this at $100, the numbers increase, but the odds stay the same. It's 589 minus 100. So you're going to, worse in a parlay, you're going to lose cash-wise. You're going to lose the maximum amount. So $10, pretty typical parlay. In the parlay, you have a $10 bet plus 589. You might be like, Train, that doesn't make any sense. It would never be 589 with the way you're explaining it. Well, let's go over to DraftKings and see what they actually put in here. Oh, look at that. Plus 589. It's exactly that. It's exactly what we predicted it would be at A-Train Station, because this is how they work. This is not a debatable point. This is how they work. This is why the odds that we calculate are exactly the same as the odds that DraftKings gives us. It's because it's math, right? So that's how it works. Okay. What I want you to understand too is that in this scenario, every time you play $10 for a negative EV parlay, you're going to have an average return of minus 1.33. And that's because this EV expectation is minus 13%. But most people are just going with the feel. Here we can quantify that and break down this parlay to help you understand, okay, well, what are you really getting at the end of it? When you get to this 58.90 and normalize it across the 3 different bets, you know that you're going to make a max profit of 58.90. Well, that effectively means to do that, you've got to be willing to risk about almost $20 on each of these legs. What we use, and you'll see this when we actually compound this on the positive EV side, the leg risk is about saying, if this amount that I'm betting effectively on this leg is more than I would reasonably bet, I probably should bet less for my parlay, because you'll be tempted at that point, if you were to have the opportunity to have 2 legs win and a 3rd leg pending, you'd be tempted to hedge. And a lot of times, even if they're starting at the same time, you'll see, oh, I've won 2 legs. I've got 1 to go. Can I hedge out of this? If you're tempted to hedge, then you've bet too much on the parlay, because why pay 13% on the dollar for the parlay in the first place and then pay another however much percent to get out of that? There's a reason that these sports books freaking love these parlays, because it encourages you to pay them at every turn. Let's take 3 bets that are each 5% or less, and let's combine them together. And now we make 13% on the dollar. And they'll thank us for it because we're limiting their downside. And you might be like, well, this is a pretty hateful thing about parlays. Don't get me wrong. I love parlays. We're going to play some parlays, and we're going to show you next what happens when you bring in a positive EV parlay. Okay, now, through the magic of the internet, we have a 3-leg parlay at FanDuel for some NFL action. So what you can see here is a scenario where you have the Washington Commanders and Baltimore Ravens. First quarter total points over 9.5. The Steelers and the Raiders total points over 39.5. And the first half Chargers points under 9.5. So these are 3 plays that are calculated as positive expected value, where we're getting odds better than what the true odds we've calculated are. Again, the strategies around doing EV betting covered widely in other videos that I have. So in this case, we have 3 positive EV plays. On the parlay side, when we bring those into a 3-leg parlay, what we see, remember just how we saw the compounding negative expected value? Well, now when you bring these 3 plays together, you have a positive compounding to the 4.83% for every dollar that you are putting into it. Right. So now we see a scenario where we should be playing these individual plays if we were just looking at them as individual plays. And you can see the Kelly bet sizing recommendation based on my bankroll of 25,000 and a 20% Kelly multiplier has a stake of 255 recommended across the 3 plays. Right. This one at 160, this one at 45, this one at 50. OK. So it gives me a max profit of 240. It gives me an average dollar return of $5.10 for this stake, right? 2% average weighted average return here. So what you can see, and we'll come into this chart in a moment, but on the parlay, same bets brought into a parlay leads you to plus 767 for the odds you're actually getting, whereas what you should get are 727, and you're going to win this bet 12% of the time. Granted, it's a parlay. You're going to win less often than you're going to win this 57% of the time. Here, you're going to win 12% of the time, but dollar for dollar, you're going to make more on your money. Now, Kelly recommended $30 on this bet, but if I do it for 10, just like we were talking about the other bet, you can see in this case, $10 would win me a $76.70 profit, and I would have an average return of 47 cents. So this is on the positive side. So what's nice here is when you look at the expected value, you can normalize it to the Kelly criterion, which is what we use for bet sizing on singleton plays. On parlays, you can do the same thing. And the combined odds of 767, you can say, all right, well, based on my return of 4.74%, we should be making a $30 parlay bet once you add it all together. How this gets calculated is a little more advanced than we can cover in this video, but this is the same basic Kelly criterion calculation that anyone uses. It's the expected value and the likelihood of winning based on your bankroll and Kelly multiplier that gets you to this Kelly result, right? So if you said, you know what, I'm willing to bet more than my Kelly, I can go to the return. You can click on that and say, okay, let's normalize to the return here of 5.10. And when we do that, we can say, all right, well, the stake would be 107.73, and we would stand to win a lot more than we would potentially win on the singleton bets. We have downside protection, but we also know that we're risking a fair amount more per leg. This is why this leg risk becomes an important thing to keep an eye on, is that we don't want to put you in a position where all of a sudden you have all this built-in equity and you're tempted to hedge out of it. You don't want to bet this much. These aren't really apples to apples. But then again, this isn't really apples to apples either. You can win about the same amount. This is what Kelly recommends. But a lot of people might want to bet more than this. You might want to bet $50. You might. So we want to bring in numbers, and we bring in numbers to A-Train Station to help facilitate you getting to that right answer. This is not about whether or not the parlay is better than the single bets. It just depends. With a parlay, you are financing the outcomes here. You're taking this and you're saying, let's roll it into a 3-leg thing. You can't win. These legs here are when you're winning one and losing others, or winning two and losing one. There's different ways this all works out. And the way it works out, 57% of the time you're winning something when you're doing the singleton bets. Well, that's great. 57% of the time you're winning something. That's great. But you're not winning as much a lot of the time, and you can lose a lot more some of the time. In a parlay, you have downside protection. You never lose more than $30 cash, but you give up the opportunity to win all the rest of this time. Think about it. The difference between 57% of the time you win something, in this case, only 12% of the time you win something, right? This is a big difference. And it's not to say one's not better than the other, but you have to understand how they work so that you can decide for your risk profile, which side of this do you want to be on? Do you want to be playing parlays? Do you want to be playing singleton bets? A lot of times when I do my actual betting, I'm leaning towards parlays because I want to get the best return on my money. And a lot of times with parlays, I can get more bet volume and get more down respectively than I can with single bets. I get limited in a lot of places, especially a lot of the places that have advantageous parlays. And you might say, this is all just mumbo jumbo. This doesn't actually add up. Look at FanDuel, and FanDuel has exactly the same odds that we calculated up here, right? So up here, we have 767, and that's exactly what FanDuel offered me, and I was able to make the play. So I actually bet this because I saw the value in it. And this is where, for me, I'm looking for the best return on my investments, which in this case will be $30 on this parlay. But a lot of the times you might want to have something where you can win more often and soften up those peaks and valleys. Because what happens with the parlays, you lose this amount a lot of the time. And then sometimes you win these nice big ones, and then they should all lead you to this overall return. The one thing that's been nice about online betting is that with parlays and online betting, you have the real calculation. We're able to calculate exactly what FanDuel offers in this situation because it's simple math. It's simply take the proceeds from one, reinvest it in the next, reinvest it in the next, done. And when you do that, it's predictable. Well, it used to be that parlays were done on parlay cards. Back in Vegas, you could always get these cards, and the cards would have a haircut built into them. You wouldn't actually get the true odds. Everything would be listed at -110. You would get a payout that's less than what the true odds would be. The benefit is that you would get stale lines. So they would print out these cards, and the lines have been moving since they printed out the card, but they'll still honor the prices on the card. You just fill in the things. You still play these in Vegas. But on online, everything is moving. You can play any combination that you want on main lines or alternates or whatever. That's sometimes where we find the best edges. And so you bring them together, but they give you the true odds when you actually parlay them. So that's fantastic. The same game parlays work similarly with an overlay of correlation, because in a same game, there's a lot of things that influence each other. And so they take a correlation factor out. So you won't get the true odds in terms of the way we're calculating it here within a same game parlay. But what you'll find a lot of the time is that haircut's pretty severe. That's why they really love when you play the same game parlays, because they don't even bother giving you the true odds and the odds that you're getting. And they'll just say, well, let's haircut them more. Nobody's paying attention to the numbers anyway. And so this is why you need a tool like A-Train Station. Nobody else is doing this kind of calculation with a chart and all the various interactivity or whatever. A lot of them will give you a parlay calculator. You just go type in a bunch of stuff, type. You know, we think it's more important to bring that stuff in, make it easy to evaluate, size your bet, enter your bet, and be done. Whereas a lot of the others out there are not thinking about it in terms of helping better. They're just providing lists of odds or whatever to help you find plays. We believe that it's more important to help not only find good plays, but to take you through that process of being a sharp bettor and amplifying those results in the way that you want to, in the strategies that you have. But when it comes back to the parlays, what we have here is a pretty amazing scenario where by combining these things, you get downside protection and increased EV. That's pretty compelling stuff for a sharp sports bettor. So this is something that we think is essential. Everybody out there should be using a parlay calculator at minimum, and we think that A-Train Station has by far and away the best parlay functionality that exists. And it's because we've thought through what is it that a bettor really needs to know and determine. If you have an odds boost, say, and a lot of the books love to give out odds boosts. So say we had an odds boost on this play. Say it boosted us up to, call it plus 825, right? We'll go 825. Now you can see some real impact, right? All of a sudden, what was our 4.74 has now become 11.75 because of a simple boost that we got on top of our odds. And so now we still win the same amount of time, but we're going to win even more money. And our edge compounds that much more. Look at this, more than twice. And on something that just boost up the odds a little bit. This is where if they want us to be playing parlays, play them smart, and you're going to do just fine. You're going to do just fine. So at minimum, take the data and use it to understand how the odds work, how the payouts work, and how these books would love for you to stay in the dark. You should disappoint them. You should take this kind of information, use it to your advantage, because they will. They're going to use every piece of data they can find to beat you out of your money. It's time to start taking that advantage yourself and putting data to work for you so that you can find positive EV plays. You can parlay those positive EV plays, and you can start to really have a level playing field, a fair fight with these sports books who would rather you not. That is what makes sports betting more fun. People are like, oh, you shouldn't think of this as an investment. You should think of this as fun. You know what's fun? Winning money. And what's nonsense out there is all the yappity yap of people out there talking about strategies, talking about their feelings, talking about they got the locks of the day, blah, blah, blah. Start with math. And then you can add on top of that. You get your opinion on things, you get your lock of the day, whatever. Break it down with math too, because that's another perspective that can only help you. If you are betting parlays without the math, you are hurting your results. And if you care about sports betting, you want to have the most fun with sports betting, try winning for a while. I promise you, it's great. So with that, that's what we wanted to cover today. So for now, this train's leaving the station. Until next time, save the units for the bros and do your betting like the pros. Thank you.